Today, we're going to talk about a topic that many of us can relate to, and that's when leadership is toxic. This is Adrian from Adrian's Avenue, and I bring you information that's rich, relatable, and relevant that you can use in your everyday leadership skills. Let's jump right in. With all the good things that leaders can do, every now and then we run across a few who are toxic, and this is not good for the team nor the company. So let's go over a few of the characteristics that may be leading to toxic leadership. Now, for the leaders out there, this is not to say that if you have one of these characteristics that you are just a toxic leader, but this is a way for you to check yourself to see if you have any of the characteristics that may be leading to toxic leadership. That way you can work on it and do something about it. So the first one we're going to cover is procedural inflexibility. With procedural inflexibility, you may be not wanting people to do certain things when it's well within your power to go ahead and be flexible in that area, such as if someone needs to take off for an emergency situation and they want to do it right away because of an ill child or an ill relative that they really need to get to, or maybe someone needs to go to the hospital and they can make up the time and you have the flexibility for them to make up the time, but you just flat out tell them, no, you have to take unexcused leave or some type of leave that's going to count against them. And this is one way that you're showing some type of inflexibility, because if it's within your power and this is an emergency situation, why not give the benefit of the doubt to the actual employee in this situation? The next point I want to bring up is not being self-aware. Not being aware of how you really are coming across to people, maybe the way that you're speaking to them, the things that you're saying, your body language. But we have to be self-aware of all the things that's coming off of us onto the team, because it's really how they're perceiving you, not necessarily how you're putting it out, but it's how they're perceiving you. So make sure we are self-aware of the things that we're doing, the things that we're saying, and the way that we're saying it, and the way that we're doing those. The next thing is not being considerate. Being considerate of others and being considerate of certain situations for your team is something that will really bring the team together and help keep the glue together and show that you actually care about that person over the performance that they're having in the company. And so if there are times that you can be considerate, because we always want someone to be considerate with us. If something were to happen, we want consideration. So let's share that consideration with our team members as leaders. The next thing I will cover is not listening. Sometimes we need to listen to others, to what they're saying, but always having an answer before you're even hearing the whole story out. That's a real good way of knowing that you're not listening. Or if someone tells you, just flat out, if one of your employees tell you that you're not hearing me or you're not listening, take a step back to see if this is true. Am I listening? Am I not hearing them? What's really going on? Breathe a little. Don't get so defensive if this comes up, but make sure we're listening to what they're saying and looking at them, listening to their body language, listening to everything about the situation. But let's listen a little bit better. Being discriminatory is another way toxic leadership is shown. Just discriminating against people because of their color or their race or their origin. This is something that we cannot afford to do in the companies these days. Lawsuits are out there about it, so we have to be so careful that we're not discriminating, because this is definitely a characteristic of toxic leadership, and we do not need this. Liking somebody over someone else for reasons that you shouldn't have is not the right thing to do. So make sure we're not discriminating. We need to treat each person on the team fairly, like they need to be treated. And if they have different situations, you can look at that situation and make a decision based on each individual. But we cannot show favoritism to one over another because of certain things such as race or color. Arrogance. Arrogance is another way that we can show toxic leadership. Being arrogant, thinking that you're always right, you're always the person in the room, and just being high-minded and looking at others in a condescending manner. This is something that we don't need in the teams, and this is something that can lead to toxic leadership, especially if it's left unchallenged and untapped. This needs to be handled as quickly as possible. No one is better than anyone else. You may be a different situation than someone, but you're not better than anyone else. And being arrogant like this, there's no place in the workforce for arrogance. Having to always be right. This is toxic, you all. This is very toxic. No one is always right. Everyone has some things that they're wrong about. We all make mistakes, but being the only one in the room on the team that's 100% right all the time, and everyone has to cater to you because of what you think or what you say, whether it's right or wrong, you think it's right, and so you push it off on the team. Not only not listening like we covered before, but having to be right. This is very toxic, and it's something that should not be tolerated in the team nor in the company. Psychological bullying is another area. If your team is afraid to do things, if they're stressed out, if they're nervous about making decisions, this could be a sign that there's some type of psychological bullying that's going on. Not necessarily physical bullying, which physical bullying can come up, but psychologically you get in their heads and you tell them things that makes them nervous or afraid or stressed out to do things, make decisions on the team. This is very unhealthy for a team, and this is something that no leader should want their team to be going through. And this type of toxicity will show up in the team on various levels. So this is something that we really want to stay away from. Okay, so we've covered quite a few characteristics of a toxic leader, toxic leadership. And so we will move on to how it affects the team, because it does affect the team in negative ways. And this is one reason why we want to put these in check as soon as possible so the team can move forward in a positive direction. Now let's talk about the effects that toxic leadership will have on the team. First thing we're going to bring up is team morale. The morale of the team will go down when there's toxic leadership. Some people on the team may try to keep it uplifted, but overall the morale of the team will go down. And I know some companies will give surveys about the morale of the team and about the manager and about procedures in the company, benefits and that type of thing. And those surveys will not come out to be positive when the morale goes down, especially because of toxic leadership. So we want to keep tabs on the morale, because morale will also lead to performance, which is another area that when leadership is toxic, the performance will go down eventually. It will just tank down, and you will see a difference in the people, and you'll see a difference in their performance level, because they may get the attitude of, well, if my leader does not care, why should I care? If my leader does not give me credit for doing the type of work that I'm doing for the company, why should I continue to do that type of work? I'm going to get the same paycheck anyway, so what does it matter? And so when we have these type of conversations, when team members start to have these type of conversations with themselves, we need to address it and make sure we're not going down that road. Sometimes with toxic leadership, absences tend to creep up. People who normally come to work on a daily basis don't have very many absences, all of a sudden start calling in sick or calling in with situations where they can't come to work. And this may be a sign that the leadership is toxic, because they're finding a reason not to come to work. They're finding a reason not to face their leader. And so this could be a cause for toxic leadership, because if the leadership is toxic, people will change their behaviors, and you will see a change in them, and you may not can put your finger on it right away. But when things start going in a negative direction, absences go up, morale goes down, performance goes down, you know that there's something going on, and that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Another area is when people become demotivated. You as a leader, sometimes you need to have volunteers to do different things for the company or for the team. And if you announce a volunteer opportunity and no one raises their hand for it, and you actually have to almost beg them to volunteer for it because you need someone in this position. And it's something that would be enjoyable. It's not something that people don't want to do, but if you don't get a response and you actually have to call upon a few or talk to a few people to get a response in this area, it may mean that they really don't want to work for you or work or volunteer for anything because they're not motivated to do so anymore. And this could be a reason, toxic leadership could be the reason behind it. Another sign is when the stress level is up. Now, there's various reasons that the stress level can be up. People can actually have things going on in their home outside of the company that can affect their stress level, which is a good reason why we need to keep the stress level as low as possible in the company. When people come to work, they have a job to do. They want to do a good job. They're there to do a good job. And so if we could make the atmosphere as good as possible, as positive as possible, this will help them out and it will help control the stress level. Now, when the stress level gets high, people start calling in sick and find a reason not to come to work because of the stress level. Also, when the stress level is high, you may or may not know, but some people get on medication and they need the medication to help with their job at work as well as whatever they may have going on at home. And this is not to say the company is 100% responsible for the stress levels of people, because there are different reasons that stress levels can go up. But you don't want your company or that atmosphere on the team to be a major reason for a change in the stress level for it to go up in any way. So toxic leadership is one way that can raise that stress level for the team members. Now, before we move on, don't be toxic, but be a true leader and hit that thumbs up button as well as the subscribe button so you can stay updated to all the newest information as it becomes available to you. So you may ask yourself, why do we still have toxic leaders? And there are many reasons we still have toxic leaders, but one of the most common reasons for this is because of incompetence or because of a deficit in leadership skills. There are certain fundamental skills that leaders should have, all leaders should have, especially if you're working with people. And those are people skills. Knowing how to treat people, knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to be there for people, knowing how to bring a team together. These are basic skills that each leader should have before going into leadership. And these are some of the things that some leaders lack. And if they have deficit in this area, they may try to make it up by, like not knowing how to make a decision. Let's go by the book with the decision because I don't know how to think through a decision and make a decision that's best for the situation. So they refer back to the book decision, which may not be the best decision in that situation. So with the lack of leadership skills, this is the main reason that leaders become toxic. They may think that I don't deserve this spot, or I got this spot and I really don't know how to handle this spot, so I'm just going to stick straight to the book and do it just by the book. Don't make any decisions outside of the book. Don't use common sense in some areas. And then they become toxic because they're just so rigid and so just set in their own ways and don't want to move with the team, don't want to move for the benefit of their company. And so there we have a toxic leader. Well, that's it. That's toxic leadership. And I would be remiss if I would not just kind of give you some tips on how to address the issue. One way of addressing the issue, if it's really pretty bad and out of hand, more than likely the manager over that leader will know about it because the team members will probably go to that manager and visit with that person about their leader. And so if this is the case, the manager may need to step in and go ahead and give direction, give maybe some training, or talk to the person at least and visit with them about specific situations that may have occurred on the team to help assist that person. If peers around that person sees what's going on or hears from the team members even what could be going on, they may suggest some things to the person, and depends on if the person is open for advice from others, if they will change or not. If their attitude is so rigid, it may take their manager talking to them. And we don't want for it to get as bad as that manager being or that leader being removed from that team because of how toxic they are. And if a person honestly is not cut out to be a leader on a team, they may need to be pulled and put on a special assignment or somewhere else that doesn't have to deal with direct reports. So just because a manager is not successful being a leader of a team does not mean that they can't work successfully in other areas of the company. So this was a tough one, you guys, but we keep it rich and we keep it relevant. And so go back through the video and just look at yourself, evaluate yourself to see if some of these things describe you, if they sound familiar. And you can go ahead and make changes yourself, because the self-assessment is the best medicine that I can tell you for something like this or anything else that you may be lacking in. So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and it will be helpful to you.